Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cassie Villela and I am a realtor, property manager, and investor here in San Antonio, Texas. On my channel, we talk about all things real estate, from market updates and data to home and garden stuff. So if that's your cup of tea, then remember to click subscribe, like, etc. Now on to the show. Today is September 21st and we are doing our monthly market update. So I used to do 2 a month and I decided to just wait for all of the data to come out and make one longer video with all of the data. I also present these market updates on the 3rd Tuesday of the month to my investor meetup on a Zoom call. So if you're interested in that, then you can sign up for that Zoom link on investors.cassievillela.com. So let's get started. First of all, we're going to look at COVID updates. You know, I just got really sad this morning looking at these. I happened to, I use an old PowerPoint. I always copy paste, and change the numbers. And so the one I pulled up was from May. And I noticed that it had 27 people on ventilators back in May. And now we're up to 197. So almost 200 people on ventilators right now in San Antonio. We've got almost 900 people hospitalized. It does look like things are going down since the last couple of weeks, but it's still too much, and it's tragic. Moving on, showings per week. So you can see there the red line is 2021, the blue line is 2020. You can see that over the past month, there was this weird dip the first week of September last year. And I can't remember what was going on this week a year ago. I don't know if it was just Labor Day or, what it was. But there was a weird dip. But other than that, it does look like we're having a lot fewer showings this time this year than this time last year. And so we'll keep looking at that. It's not egregious, but it is pretty obvious from this graph that that's what's happening. Rental showings per week. We had the same dip in rental showings. So you know what? I think there was a really bad series of storms one week. I do remember now that I'm saying it out loud, I do remember there being a weird dip in showings because of storms at some point last year. So that might be that. So, I'm kind of just overlooking that one small valley there and looking at the overall trend. And it does look like rental showings are pretty much on trend for where we were last year. Weekly home sales, almost exactly the same. And then I do want to just mention that these showings are just in the starter home range, whereas the weekly home sales is actually all homes across the board in all of San Antonio, just to clarify. So across the entire market, weekly home sales are pretty much exactly where they were this time last year. Now our median price, this is kind of the first chance you can see where the prices are declining a little bit. We're kind of on a slightly downward trend, still way ahead of where we were last year, still much higher than we were this time last year, but definitely down in the last couple of weeks. So something we want to watch. And that's actually what we're going to talk about today. Median sales price is still increasing, but you can see that in August, it slowed down a little bit. We were kind of going April, June, July, and then August. And so I just can't wait for September numbers to come out. I am so looking forward to them. Just because, anecdotally talking to other agents and just kind of the pulse on the market is that it's slowing down. We've kind of reached the top that buyers are willing to pay, and buyers have stepped back and been like, we're not dealing with you crazy sellers and your prices. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how the sales price fluctuates. Got some data later in this presentation on that as well. New listings by price range. We have a little bit less in the sort of premium price range. The orange line is $325,000 or more, and then the other ones are pretty steady. homes for sale overall. Now, this is one that I really want to call your attention to because, you know, over time, you can see how that graph has just been nosediving. And the reason for that wasn't that people weren't selling their homes. It wasn't that people weren't putting their homes on the market. The reason for that was that the homes were getting snatched up so quickly that at any given point, the number of homes available for sale was much lower than normal. And so the fact that this graph is kind of going back up, I think that's a representation of just kind of a bit of a slowdown in the market. Pending sales are slightly up in August after kind of a decline in July. So we'll just have to keep an eye on those. Our median days on market, again, another one that has been nosediving all this year, but then picking back up. Now, I do want to call attention to the fact that we're still talking about 20 days on market, which is incredible. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying like alarm bells, you know, it's just something to keep in mind. Price per square foot is again kind of seeming to even out a little bit, kind of decrease in some price ranges. And then this chart, the median percent of last list price. So the percentage is basically if you have a list price of $200,000, and if the home ends up selling for $200,000 and is recorded in the MLS as having sold for $200,000, that would be 100% of list price. And so we see that in June and July, we actually were above 100% of list price, which definitely tracks. We had, you know, it was just, the list price was not going to be the contract price. People were going way over list. And so you can see though that those are starting to come back down. Now, again, they're coming back down to 100, which is still phenomenal. It's just that in comparison to the last month, it's a little bit shocking to see. The dollar volume. So I don't normally include this graph in my updates, but I thought I would. First of all, because it kind of looks like cat ears to me. And so I thought that was cute. But also because, you know, the dollar volume, this is, you know, so this is the value of all the homes sold in the entire San Antonio market. So that kind of gives us an idea, you know, a bird's eye view, like how many homes are selling, how is this economy churning? And so again, we had that going up, starting February of this year. We have an increasing, and then we're falling off the next couple of months. Alrighty, so all of those graphs previously were from Showing Time. They're Showing Time reports. These and those you have to have access to Showing Time. And so I know I have access to Showing Time because I'm a realtor. These blue circle figures are actually from the San Antonio Board of Realtors website, and anybody can see those. Just go to their market statistics and they're right there. So we have around the same amount of single family home sales as last year. Moving on to single family home prices, the average increased 19% in August. So year over year, homes went up by an average of 19%, and the median increase was 16%. I mean, incredible. That is incredible appreciation for a market like San Antonio. So we really, really were in a spike in August, price-wise. August single family homes days on market. So we were talking about this earlier, how, you know, it's increased since last month, but, you know, it's still 24. That's still incredibly small. At this time last year in 2020, when I was doing this update, I should probably go back and like find that video and find what I said, but I was already like, oh my gosh, only 55 days on market. And now we're down to 24 days on market. Just incredible. Multifamily sales, we had a few more multifamilies this year. And I thought this was kind of funny. So this This is why like median and average are just so tricky, and you can really manipulate your point using numbers and really kind of sway the situation using your numbers. And this is a great example because I have on one side the average multifamily prices actually decreased, but the median increased. So that's why, you always have to kind of look at both numbers and just kind of try to understand what they mean. In this case, what I think it means is that in multifamily, remember, multifamily includes both duplexes and fourplexes. Obviously, a fourplex is going to be a lot more than a duplex, probably twice as much. And so if you have the average can be skewed by, if you've got a couple of fourplexes in there, it can pull it up. Or if you have more duplexes, it can pull it down. Whereas the median is going to be that like middle price. So again, I always like to look at the median and put more weight to that, but it's nice to know all of the data. You can never have too much data. So August residential rental, that's a mouthful. A decrease in the number of units rented, a pretty significant decrease. And so it's definitely something to watch. We still have a 7% increase in rental prices though. So right now the median rental home in San Antonio is $1,700. That's the median. I think that's the average. The average price of a rental home. Now this does not include apartments because those are on a separate MLS. But this is homes, condos, townhomes, duplexes, fourplexes, things like that. All of those, the median. So, where families are more likely to want to rent, $1,700 is the average, which to me sounds like a lot for San Antonio. Okay, so this, as you can see from the graphic, the next set of data is from Independence Title. They have a fantastic website. If you haven't checked it out yet, go to Independence Title's website and click on San Antonio. And then they have all kinds of calculators where you can figure out, like, after closing costs, your take-home pay or take-home, your seller net. You can look at all kinds of different data sets. It's really full of information. And I'm really glad that I figured that out because I like data, obviously. So residential sales. Now, the reason I like these is because they go back 5 years. So we've been looking at, just this year, what's going on. And then we're kind of seeing like, oh my gosh, it's going down. But then when we compare that to the last several years, it's a different story. And so you can see the number of sales is a little bit lower than this time last year, but still much higher than 2017 through 2019. You can also see the average sales price. You can kind of see how over time that was bumping up just a bit. And then between 2020 and 2021, there's just this huge increase. You can also see that line in 2021 kind of leveling off over the last couple of months. So something to watch for. The median sales price, again, the line is kind of leveling off and there's that big gap, pretty much the same. And then sales volume. So that's that dollar volume that we talked about earlier in a previous graph. So you can see here how comparing that to not only 2020, but the previous years, there's still so much more real estate being bought and sold in San Antonio this year than previous years. Nobody needed a graph to know that, but I think it's cool to see just how dramatic the difference is. And then here we have months of inventory. So this is one of those kind of backwards graphs where if it's going down, that's indicating a hot market. And if it's going up, that means it's slowing down. So you can kind of see how since June, It's been increasing a little bit. That's because there are more homes on the market. That's because they're selling slightly slower. And so we have a little bit more inventory. We also have a lot more new listings. And so that's kind of helping push that months of inventory up. But I will remind you that experts tend to say that a balanced market, so a market that doesn't favor the buyers or the sellers, is balanced, would be 6 months of inventory. With that in mind, we are still in a very, very hot market. So basically, what all of these charts say is that we've seen this just unprecedented market in the last few months in San Antonio. We've seen things we never saw before, bidding wars for way over list price, appraisal gaps, all kinds of stuff. That is starting to slow down, but that doesn't mean that the market's crashing necessarily. It's just that it's not growing as quickly. So, instead of going up like this, it's just kind of going like that. So I don't think it's time to panic yet. I think that we are probably looking more at something like a plateau situation where hopefully, and I kind of think that it's a good thing because there are a lot of buyers, and I'm about to film another video that's looking at the housing market from like a more national basis. But there are a lot of buyers who have stopped looking because prices just ran away from them. We just kind of reached that ceiling where people stepped back and were like, okay, that's too much. I'm not going to go there. And so I think that's why we're plateauing. I think that will give those buyers a chance to jump back in the market and get the homes they need. I don't see that causing the market to decline as much as just plateau and slow down. So I predict, again, I'm not an expert and I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know, but I predict that the days on market will start to rise a little bit. We'll start to have more months of inventory. We'll have more homes on the market, and homes will take a little bit longer to sell, and they'll sell for closer to asking price, if not maybe even a little bit under asking price. So that's my prediction. If you have your home on the market or you're considering putting your home on the market, my advice would be to take this data into account, realize that although we were in this crazy market where sellers could just pull some number out of thin air and get it, we are no longer in that market. And if you price your home way, 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 way above where it might have sold in June, it's probably not going to sell in September. That's just kind of the sense I get from being on the ground. If you are a buyer and you are looking, I would say don't feel like you have to go way above and beyond as a buyer. I would say that the most important thing you can do as a buyer is demonstrate how solid you are. So, really good finance, like really good, pick a very good lender, make sure that the seller knows that if they choose you, the deal's going to go through, because that's what's on sellers' mind. They want to get things under contract because everybody's looking at these numbers. So make sure that you make the case that you're a solid buyer, but don't overpay, because you can wait and probably prices will even out a little bit. And even if it's just a month, you'll be able to buy something in your price range soon, or hopefully have a little bit less competition soon. Hopefully. I have not been a fan of this market where it's been wild and crazy. I like a little bit more balanced market. I invest in San Antonio because it's a stable market. And so I want it to stay stable. That's just my 2 cents. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, definitely leave a comment down below. If you have any remarks on, other data sources I can use or anything I missed from the data, let me know. Always love conversation, and we'll see you next time.